What would you do if your own husband expelled you from home for giving birth to a girl? In the white stone palace of Qasr al-Bahja, the cries of a newborn mixed with the heavy silence that dominated the chamber. Yasmin cradled Safiya, her third daughter, born just 3 hours before. The baby slept peacefully while in the corner, Layla and Amira played with rag dolls sewn by their own mother, oblivious to the approaching storm. The door burst open violently. Hakim al-Mansuri entered like a judge about to pronounce sentence. His eyes, once full of passion, were now cold blades of contempt. 3 daughters, Yasmin, 3. His voice echoed through the marble like an irrevocable verdict. My brothers mock me. They say Allah has cursed me with a wife incapable of bearing men. Without listening to his wife's pleas, Hakim announced the exile. 1 week to recover, then she would leave with the children and never return. Yasmin, suffocated by pain, didn't know that her tears and prayers would be heard by ancient forces who inhabit the border between the visible and invisible, forces that awaken when injustice exceeds the limit of the bearable. Before continuing, leave a comment to let me know which country these stories are reaching and check if you're already subscribed to the channel. 7 days passed like an eternity. Yasmin could barely eat Nurse Safiya or explain to Layla and Amira why Daddy no longer came to visit them. The children felt the tension in the air, cried more, asked why Mama was always sad. On the morning of the 8th day, 3 carriages stopped in front of the palace. Hakim entered the room wearing his finest clothes, as if going to a festival, not to the end of a family. It's time, he announced, without looking into Yasmin's eyes. Your belongings are already in the carriages. The house I found is on the outskirts of the city. It's simple, but it has a roof and walls. Yasmin carried Safiya in her arms while Layla and Amira clung to her embroidered tunic, the same one she wore on her wedding day. The children looked with wide eyes at the father who treated them like strangers. The journey to the new house was torturous. They passed the bustling markets where Yasmin used to buy fine spices, the public gardens where she took the girls to play, the mosques where the family prayed together on Fridays. All of that now became memory. The house was located on a dusty street on the outskirts of Qasr al-Bahja, far from the perfumed gardens and marble fountains they knew. It was small, with clay walls and a low roof, but clean and dignified. This house is now yours, said Hakim, throwing a purse of coins on the floor of the empty room. The metallic sound echoed like mockery. There's enough money for a few months. Don't come back to my neighborhood. To the world, to my new family, you no longer exist. Layla began to cry. Daddy, why are you angry with us? Did we do something wrong? Hakim hesitated for a moment, looking at his eldest daughter. For an instant, Yasmin saw a shadow of regret in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Be good girls, he murmured awkwardly. Then he left without looking back. When the door closed, Yasmin collapsed on the packed earth floor. The 3 children huddled around her, crying, without understanding why their lives had changed so drastically. The house had only 2 empty rooms and a small courtyard with parched earth where nothing grew. That first night, while the girls slept huddled in their only blanket, the wedding quilt that Yasmin couldn't leave behind, she raised her eyes to the starry sky through the glassless window. Ya Allah, if I am a pious woman, if I have always prayed 5 times a day, if I raised my daughters in your fear and love, why do you punish me thus? What have I done to deserve this humiliation? Is having daughters really a curse? Have I failed as a woman for not being able to bear a boy? Doubts gnawed at her. In her culture, a woman's worth was intimately linked to her ability to give male children to her husband. 3 consecutive daughters were seen as a sign of weakness, of incapacity, almost like a curse. The provisions that Hakim had left ran out in 3 days. There were no relatives to ask for help. Hakim had made sure to isolate her from all mutual acquaintances. How would a woman alone with 3 small children, 1 a newborn, survive in a society that offered no work opportunities for women? Despair began to set in when Yasmin realized the money would barely last a week for food. On the 4th day, without food, with Safiya crying from hunger and Layla and Amira asking for something she didn't have, Yasmin made the most bitter decision of her life. She removed from her finger the only wealth she had left, the gold ring with a small emerald that Hakim had given her on their honeymoon. Girls, Mama's going out for a bit. Layla, take care of your sisters, okay? I'll take care of them, Mama. Are you going to bring food? Asked the little girl, serious as an adult. I'll try, Habibti. The market buzzed with spice aromas and the noise of voices haggling over prices. Yasmin found the old jeweler, who looked at her with contempt. Tersana, Hakim's repudiated wife. This ring is worth little. I'll give 2 coins. It was an unfair offer, but she had no choice. She took the money and bought bread and goat's milk. On the way back, she saw an old hunchbacked woman in the shade of a tamarind tree, miserable and starving. "Please, any crumb?" asked the woman with a weak voice. Yasmin looked at the bread, enough only for her daughters. Something stronger than reason made her extend half of it. "Take it, mother. May Allah bless your meal." The old woman took the bread, and her eyes shone with an unusual light. "May Allah reward your kindness twofold, Yasmin bint Ahmad." The shock made her freeze. How did she know her name? But in the blink of an eye, the woman disappeared without leaving traces. On the ground there remained only a small bronze key, warm to the touch, with symbols that seemed to move. Later, in the courtyard, Yasmin noticed, hidden by dry vines, an ancient clay oven, covered with dust and mysterious engravings. On the side, a lock. With her heart racing, she placed the key. It fit perfectly. When Yasmin turned the key and opened the oven, a gust of warm and perfumed air escaped, as if the oven had been lit recently. But this was impossible. The structure was clearly abandoned for years, perhaps decades. The interior was immaculately clean, as if someone had prepared it especially for her. The inner walls gleamed with a golden enamel that reflected light almost hypnotically. Even stranger, next to the oven, perfectly organized, there was a pile of dry wood, some kitchen utensils she didn't possess, and a sack of the finest quality wheat flour. Perhaps the former occupant forgot these things here, she murmured to herself, trying to find a logical explanation for the inexplicable. Or perhaps Hakim left this as a final kindness. But deep in her heart, she knew that none of these explanations made sense. With the girls crying from hunger in the next room, the little bread she had bought was already gone. Yasmin decided to take the risk. After all, what harm could there be in using an apparently abandoned oven? She mixed the mysterious flour with water and a little salt she still had, kneaded until forming a simple dough, and shaped some small breads. When she put the wood in the oven, something extraordinary happened. The fire lit itself. Yasmin stepped back, frightened. She hadn't used matches. There were no sparks, no embers from previous fire. The flames simply sprouted from the wood as if they were alive. And what flames! They danced in colors she had never seen before, deep blue like the night sky, green like emeralds, golden like the morning sun. Subhanallah, she sighed, fascinated and terrified at the same time. She placed the breads in the oven and waited. The aroma that spread through the house was indescribable, not just of baking bread, but of rare spices, of paradise flowers, of something celestial that made the mouth water and the heart calm. When she removed the breads, Yasmin almost couldn't believe what she saw. They were no longer the simple small breads she had prepared. They were edible works of art, golden, perfectly proportioned, with a crust that shone as if it had been dusted with gold powder. She called her daughters, who ran to the kitchen, attracted by the wonderful aroma. "Mama, what a good smell!" exclaimed Layla, her eyes shining. Yasmin broke one of the breads, still warm and steaming, and offered small pieces to her daughters. What happened next left her perplexed. Each girl ate only a small piece, no bigger than a coin, and was completely satisfied. Not only satisfied, but energized, happy, as if they had had a complete and nutritious meal. Safiya, who constantly cried from hunger, calmed instantly after Yasmin dripped some drops of water with breadcrumbs into her mouth. "How can this be?" murmured Yasmin, contemplating the remaining breads. "Such a small piece. How can it nourish so much?" In the following days, the pattern repeated and intensified. Whenever Yasmin cooked in the mysterious oven, the food transformed. A handful of lentils became an abundant and fragrant soup. A simple egg became a golden omelette that fed them all. And the breads had properties that defied all logic. When Layla cut her knee playing in the courtyard, Yasmin applied breadcrumbs mixed with water. The wound healed in hours, leaving no mark. When Amira had fever, a tea prepared with water that had touched the bread cured her instantly. But the most disturbing were the nocturnal phenomena. During the early morning, Yasmin heard whispers coming from the courtyard. Low, melodious voices, speaking in ancient Arabic, words she vaguely recognized from the most sacred prayers, but in dialects she couldn't completely understand. One night she woke to a golden light flickering through the window. The oven flames were lit, but danced alone, without wood, creating hypnotic patterns in the air. And the voices sang. What ancestral force controlled this oven, and why had it chosen her family? One night, curiosity overcame fear. Yasmin got up silently and walked to the courtyard to discover the origin of the whispers and mysterious lights. What she saw would change her understanding of reality forever. Yasmin stepped barefoot into the courtyard, illuminated by a full silver moon, and stopped abruptly. Her breath caught in her throat. 3 ethereal figures floated gracefully around the sacred oven. They were no bigger than 10-year-old children, but radiated an ancientness that seemed to go back to the origins of creation. Their bodies were made of translucent golden light, and their eyes shone like stars in the night sky. They wore garments that seemed woven from moonbeams, and their hands, delicate as jasmine petals, glowed while blessing ingredients invisible to mortal eyes. They whispered prayers in archaic Arabic, their voices blending in celestial harmonies that made the soul vibrate on sacred frequencies. La ilaha illa Allah, Rabbal Alameen, Barik for rizq hada al-bayt. There is no God but Allah, Lord of the worlds. Bless the sustenance of this house. Yasmin tried to step back, but her feet seemed rooted to the ground. One of the beings, the tallest, with a crown of light around his forehead, perceived her presence and turned slowly. La takhafa, ya Yasmin bint Ahmad, he said with a voice that sounded like gentle wind in the desert dunes. Do not fear, O Yasmin, daughter of Ahmad. We are guardian jinn, servants of the Most High, protectors of the righteous and oppressed. Yasmin fell to her knees, trembling like a leaf in a storm. Who are you? Why are you in my humble house? What do you want from me? The second jinn, a feminine figure with hair that floated like blue flames, approached with movements that resembled dance. This is not just your house, blessed daughter. This is a sacred place consecrated 1,000 years ago by our ancestors. We have guarded this oven since the time of Caliph Harun al-Rashid, waiting for someone whose heart was pure enough to activate its powers. Your generosity toward our sister, disguised as a beggar, broke the seal that kept us hidden from the mortal world, explained the third jinn, whose voice sounded like silver bells touched by wind. When you gave your last bread to one, you judged more needy. Even having your own daughters starving, you proved you possessed the rarest quality among humans, genuine sacrifice without expectation of reward. Yasmin sobbed, tears flowing freely. But I'm not special. I'm just an abandoned woman, rejected for not being able to give male children to my husband. I'm a failure. Silence. The voice of the jinn leader echoed with divine authority. Never say such words again. Allah, who sees all and knows all, does not measure a woman's worth by the quantity of male children she bears, but by the purity of her heart and the goodness of her actions. The feminine jinn extended her luminous hands. This oven is a treasure of the jinn, passed from generation to generation for 1,000 years. It possesses the power to transform simple ingredients into blessed foods, food that heals the body, soothes the soul, and nourishes both the physical and spiritual. But beware, warned the third jinn, his expression becoming solemn. The oven only works for truly pure hearts, for those who place others' well-being above their own. Our mission through the centuries has been to help those who suffer injustice, protect widows and orphans, support the helpless. You, Yasmin bint Ahmad, were chosen not by chance, but by destiny. Your nightly prayers, your tears of a wronged mother, reached the ears of the Creator, and He sent us to be His instruments of justice and mercy. The jinn leader floated closer, his eyes shining with infinite compassion. But beware, daughter. If one day your heart fills with greed, if you seek revenge instead of justice, if you use this gift to harm instead of help, the oven will close forever, and we will be forced to leave. The power we offer comes with responsibility. Use it wisely, with humility, always remembering that you are only a temporary guardian of a treasure that belongs to the Almighty. Yasmin bowed her head in reverence. I accept this responsibility. I swear by Allah that I will use this gift only for good, to feed the hungry and help the needy. The 3 jinns smiled in unison, and their forms began to fade like golden smoke in the morning wind. So be it. But remember, soon will come a test that will prove whether your words are true. 3 months passed since the jinn revelation. Yasmin's life had completely transformed. Using the sacred oven, she created breads, cakes, and sweets that quickly gained fame throughout Qasr al-Bahjah, not only for their extraordinary taste, but for the almost miraculous properties they possessed. Women came from far away to buy her breads that relieved headaches. Fathers brought sick children to taste her cakes that cured fevers. Merchants sought her special pies before important trips, as they were said to bring good luck in business. Yasmin sold everything at fair prices, never exploiting others' needs, always keeping a portion to distribute freely to the poorest. Her small house on the outskirts had become a center of hope for the needy from the entire region. Layla, Amira, and Safia flourished. Now well-fed and healthy, the three girls played in the renovated courtyard, studied with a tutor Yasmin had hired, and wore clothes worthy of little princesses. But more importantly, they grew with solid values, seeing daily their mother help the less fortunate. It was then that the test the Jinn had prophesied arrived. On a hot summer afternoon, a luxurious carriage stopped in front of Yasmin's humble house. From it descended Ibn Malik al-Taji, the richest and most ruthless merchant in the region, known as much for his fortune as for his cruelty in business. He was Hakim al-Mansuri's declared rival, and harbored hatred for him that lasted decades. "Yasmin bint Ahmad," he said, entering the house uninvited, "I've heard of your special culinary talents. I have a proposition that can make you the richest woman in the entire desert." Yasmin received him with courtesy, but kept her distance. "I'm grateful for your visit, Lord Ibn Malik. How can I help you?" He smiled, but it was a smile cold as a blade. "I want you to prepare special foods for me. Breads, cakes, whatever is necessary, but these foods must have specific properties." "What properties?" "I want them to ruin Hakim al-Mansuri's business, to cause bad luck to his enterprises, to drive away his clients, to lead him to complete ruin." Ibn Malik placed a heavy purse on the table. The metallic noise revealed a fortune in gold coins. 1,000 gold dinars, Yasmin. Enough for you and your daughters to live like queens for the rest of your lives. Yasmin's heart accelerated violently. 1,000 dinars. It was more money than Hakim had earned in years of work. It would be enough to give her daughters education in the best schools, worthy dowries, a bright future. And Hakim, he deserved to pay for what he had done. He deserved to feel in his flesh what it meant to lose everything, to be humiliated, rejected. Wouldn't that be justice? Wouldn't that be Allah himself using her hands to balance the scales? "I need to think," she murmured, struggling against contradictory thoughts. "Think fast," Ibn Malik replied, standing up. "This offer expires tomorrow at sunset. And remember, Hakim al-Mansuri threw you in the gutter like garbage. Now you have the chance to do the same to him." When he left, Yasmin was alone with the weight of the decision. The temptation was almost irresistible, revenge and wealth in a single choice. 1,000 dinars would solve all her financial problems, and using the oven's powers to destroy the one who destroyed her, wouldn't that be divine poetry? But the Jinn's words echoed in her mind. If one day your heart fills with greed, if you seek revenge instead of justice, the oven will close forever. That night, the Jinn appeared more serious than ever. They didn't speak, only observed her with eyes that seemed to penetrate her soul. "The choice approaches, Yasmin," the Jinn leader finally said. "Remember, the oven serves to heal, not to wound, to elevate, not to destroy, to nourish, not to cause hunger." "But what if the one who wronged me deserves to be punished?" Yasmin asked, her voice full of anguish. "Wouldn't that be divine justice? Wouldn't that be Allah using my hands to correct an injustice?" The feminine Jinn floated closer. "Daughter, vengeance belongs only to the Creator. Your mission is to be an instrument of mercy, not punishment. Let Allah, in His infinite wisdom, take care of who needs to be corrected." The third Jinn whispered, "A woman's true strength is not in destroying the one who hurt her, but in building something beautiful from her own pain." Yasmin spent the night awake, praying, meditating, fighting against the demons of revenge and greed that whispered in her ears. The sun was setting when Ibn Malik returned, accompanied by 2 robust bodyguards. His expectations were clear. He expected that financial need and the desire for revenge had convinced Yasmin. "So what is your answer?" he asked, already extending his hand to seal the deal. "Do you accept my generous proposal?" Yasmin looked out the window and saw her 3 daughters playing in the courtyard. Layla was teaching Amira how to braid flowers in Safia's hair, who now had 1 year and was taking her first wobbling steps. 3 beautiful, healthy girls, full of life and innocence. She thought of everything they had gone through together, the nights of hunger, fear, uncertainty, but also the discovery of the sacred oven, the transformation of their lives. the joy of being able to help others who suffered as they had suffered. She breathed deeply and turned to Ibn Malik with a determination that surprised her. "Lord Ibn Malik, I'm grateful for your offer, but I must refuse it." The merchant's smile disappeared instantly. "Refuse? Are you mad, woman? It's a fortune. My oven was blessed by Allah to feed the hungry, heal the sick, bring joy to sad hearts. I cannot, must not, and will not use it to cause suffering to any human being, no matter what that person has done to me. Even if that someone is Hakim al-Mansuri, the man who humiliated you, who threw you and your daughters into misery." Yasmin raised her chin with dignity. "Especially because it's Hakim. If I use my gift to harm him, I'll become as cruel as he was to me, and my daughters will grow up seeing that revenge is more important than forgiveness." Ibn Malik slammed his fist on the table, making the gold coins jump. "You'll regret this decision, foolish woman. No one rejects Ibn Malik al-Taji and gets away with it. May Allah guide you to the path of peace," Yasmin replied calmly, pushing the gold purse back to him. When the men left slamming the door, the house fell silent. Yasmin sat down, trembling, realizing the magnitude of what she had just done. She had rejected a fortune and possibly made a powerful enemy. That night, the jinn appeared radiant, their forms shining more intensely than ever. "Subhanallah, you passed the test, Ya Yasmin," said the jinn leader, his voice full of paternal pride. "You chose forgiveness over revenge, integrity over easy wealth, the difficult path of virtue over the broad trail of greed. Therefore we grant you the last and greatest gift," announced the feminine jinn, her hands illuminating like small suns. "This oven is now truly yours. Even when we depart, it will continue to function, for your heart has learned the most sacred secret." The third jinn floated closer. "The true power was never in the clay oven or in our ancient magic. It was in the purity of your intention, in the generosity of your spirit, in the unconditional love you offer to all who knock at your door. Allah infinitely blesses those who bless others without expecting reward," completed the leader. "And now, our mission here is accomplished." 1 year passed since the night of the great test. Yasmin had become not only the most respected baker in Qasr al-Bahjah, but an almost legendary figure of generosity and wisdom. Her small house on the outskirts had transformed into a true sanctuary of hope. Every day, lines of people formed in front of her door, mothers with sick children, merchants needing good luck, travelers seeking protection for long journeys, poor people who simply needed a meal. Yasmin never rejected anyone. Her house had been renovated and expanded with the honest income from her work. The courtyard now housed a flourishing garden where Layla, Amira, and Safiya played among jasmines and roses. A well had been dug to provide fresh water to all visitors. Extra rooms had been built to house needy travelers. The sacred oven continued working. But now Yasmin understood that the true miracle wasn't in the colored flames or the multiplication of food. The miracle was in the love she put into each dough, in the pure intention with which she prepared each meal, in the silent prayer that accompanied each batch. The 3 daughters grew like flowers in the desert after rain. Layla, now 6 years old, could already read and write, and helped her mother distribute bread to the poor. Amira, 4 years old, showed exceptional talent for numbers, and organized the donations that arrived daily. Safiya, 2 years old, charmed everyone with her smile and her attempts to imitate her mother's prayers. "Allah gave me 3 daughters," Yasmin reflected every morning while lighting the oven, "and each one is a blessing I hadn't known how to see before. Each has a unique gift, a special purpose in the divine plan." Her reputation had spread throughout the desert. Caravans made detours just to buy her blessed breads. Women came from distant cities to learn not only her recipes, but her secret for transforming simple ingredients into daily miracles. But Yasmin always answered, "The secret isn't in the oven or the ingredients. It's in cooking with love, serving with humility, and remembering that we are only instruments in the hands of the Almighty." It was on a winter afternoon, when cold wind blew through the streets of Qasr al-Bahjah, that destiny completed its perfect circle. Yasmin was in the courtyard, teaching Safiya to feed the birds that came to drink water from her fountain, when she heard a hesitant knock at the door. It wasn't the confident knock of regular customers, but something weaker, more desperate. "Layla, can you answer the door, Habibti?" she called. But when she opened the door, Layla came running back, eyes wide. "Mama, it's a very thin and dirty man. He's asking for food, but he seems familiar." Yasmin wiped her hands on her apron and went to the entrance. What she saw made her stagger. There stood a man who could barely stay upright, torn and dirty clothes, unkempt beard, disheveled hair, bare and wounded feet, thin to the point of malnutrition, trembling with cold and weakness. But the eyes, she knew those eyes. "Please," the voice was a hoarse whisper, "I haven't eaten for 3 days. Any crumb would be a blessing from Allah." "Hakim," the name escaped her lips like an incredulous prayer. He slowly raised his face and recognized her. His legs failed, and he collapsed on his knees at the door, sobbing like a lost child. "Yasmin, forgiveness, forgiveness." Without hesitation, Yasmin helped him stand and brought him inside. She sat him in the most comfortable chair, brought fresh water, and began preparing a nutritious soup in the sacred oven. "What happened, Hakim?" she asked without anger in her voice, only genuine compassion. Between sobs and broken words, he told his story. "The woman I married, Fatima, she was barren, but lied to me. When she discovered she couldn't get pregnant, she began stealing my goods secretly. For 2 years, she and her brother diverted my money to private accounts." He paused to drink some water. "When I discovered, it was already too late. They had fled together. Yes, she ran away with her own brother, taking almost all my fortune. What remained was lost when I tried to recover the money by making desperate deals. And your brothers? They rejected me. They said Allah had punished me for breaking a family, for abandoning a good wife and innocent daughters. They said I was a shame to the family name." His tears fell like rain in drought. "I lost the house, the business, friends, dignity. For months I've lived like a beggar, sleeping in mosques, eating scraps." Yasmin served him the steaming soup. "And your daughters, Hakim? Do you remember them?" He looked through the window and saw 3 beautiful girls playing in the garden. Layla was telling a story to her younger sisters, all laughing and healthy, wearing simple but dignified clothes. Are they well? They've grown so much." His voice broke. "How could they prosper without me? How did you manage to care for them alone?" "With Allah's help and the love I felt for them from the first day," Yasmin replied simply. "They are my most precious jewels, Hakim. Every day with them is a blessing." Can they forgive me? Can you forgive me? I know I don't deserve it. I know I was cruel, unjust, blind." Yasmin knelt beside his chair. "Hakim, Allah is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the compassionate, the merciful. If He can forgive, who am I to deny forgiveness? And your daughters, yet they have the right to know the Father who begot them, even if He made mistakes. There's a place at our table if you want to know the daughters you rejected, but now they know they are blessings, not curses." That night was unforgettable. For the first time in almost 3 years, a family reunited around Yasmin's table. Hakim, clean and wearing borrowed clothes, tried to rebuild bridges with daughters he barely remembered. Layla, always mature for her age, was the first to approach. "Daddy, Mama taught us that Allah forgives those who sincerely repent. If you promise to be good to us, you can stay." Amira, more shy, offered him a drawing she had made. "This is our magic oven, Daddy. It makes food that heals sad people." Safia, too small to fully understand the situation, simply approached and asked to be held, melting the heart of the father who had rejected her at birth. After the girls went to sleep, Hakim held Yasmin's hands. "How can you forgive me? How can you be so good after everything I did? I rejected you when you needed me most. I abandoned my own daughters. I threw you into misery." Yasmin smiled with a peace that came from much suffering transformed into wisdom. "Because I learned something that changed my life forever. Allah doesn't test us with the blessings He gives us, but with what we do with them. You saw 3 daughters as punishment, as proof of your bad luck. I learned to see them as crowns that Allah placed on my head. The jinn who visited me taught me that the true miracle isn't in breads that multiply or in flames that dance impossible colors. The true miracle is in hearts that expand to welcome even those who hurt us." She pointed to the oven in the courtyard. "That oven works not by magic, but by love. And when a woman understands that her honor doesn't come from bearing male children, but from creating dignified and good human beings, then she has discovered the greatest secret that jinn have guarded for 1,000 years." "What?" Hakim asked, genuinely curious. "That Allah chooses the rejected, the humiliated, the despised, to teach the proud the true value of blessings. He uses the weak to confound the strong. He uses cursed women to show men what really matters." Hakim spent the following weeks recovering his health and, more importantly, learning to know the extraordinary daughters he had rejected. He worked as a helper in Yasmin's business, distributing bread to the poor, carrying ingredients, cleaning the sacred oven. He never again touched on the subject of marriage or romantic reconciliation. He understood he had lost that right, but slowly, patiently, he reconquered the right to be called father. And thus, the woman who was rejected for giving birth to 3 daughters became an example for all mothers of the desert. Her story spread from oasis to oasis, from city to city, carried by caravans and pilgrims. The oven still works, say the neighbors. But the true miracle happens every morning, when 4 voices, a mother and 3 daughters, sometimes joined by a 5th voice, that of a repentant father, recite together the dawn prayers. Because Allah chooses the rejected to teach the proud the true value of blessings. And sometimes the greatest blessing is discovering that love doesn't need male children to be complete. It only needs to be true. And they remembered the words of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Paradise is under the feet of mothers. And they understood that it doesn't matter if that mother gave birth to boys or girls. What matters is the love with which she raised them.